Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Brittany Hanson. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving at the university and also a proud alumna. Our office works hard to keep you connected to USF using events, activities, services, and virtual events just like this. Today, we are putting Jon Hart, USF's new athletic director, in the hot seat. Over the next 45 minutes, he will be answering your burning questions. So as we get started, I just want to introduce Jon. He began serving as the university's director of athletics on January 1st, after most recently serving as athletic director at Dakota Wesleyan University in Mitchell. Throughout his tenure at DWU, he raised over $15 million in capital projects and $900,000 annually while overseeing 18 sports, 450 student athletes, and approximately 40 staff members. DWU claimed their first national championship in 2018 and 2019 and continued to be within the top half of the NAIA Learfield Cup national standings. Under his leadership, the Tigers saw a steady increase in conference championships, All-Americans, all-conference honorees, and multiple top finishes in school history. In the classroom, DW teams held a cumulative GPA of 3.38 and were consistently recognized as an NAIA Champions of Character Gold institution for service and character. Nationally, Hart served on the NAIA Board of Directors and the National Coordinating Committee, which led convention programming and legislation changes. A former football and baseball athlete for the Tigers with a bachelor's and master's from DWU, Jon Hart is excited to now be a part of the Cougar family. Thanks for being here, Jon.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody for being here. Thanks for putting this on, Brittany. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. So what do you say we dive in?
It sounds good.
Okay, you're in the hot seat. So
All
for
right.
those of you joining us, this is meant to be a conversation with lots of opportunities for you to participate and ask questions. In fact, feel free to type your question in the chat feature at any time, and we'll try to get to everyone's. But those of you that sent them in advance, thanks, because we're going to get started with one of the burning questions. Jon, what is your vision for USF athletics?
Yeah, obviously, kind of a broad question, kind of give a little bit of a broad answer to it in some ways. But I think ultimately, I really see USF athletics, being one of the premier Division II programs in the country, really. I think there's no reason we can't be continually at the top from a competitive standpoint, from a character perspective. I think we have all the right tools and the right pieces to get there. Now it's kind of my job to really resources to the point where we feel good about, really getting up there consistently. But I think being in Sioux Falls, having a great university here, having some great personnel, there's no reason we can't get to a really good place overall in Division II. And I think we're there. We got a lot of the right pieces, and I think building relationships is going to be critical. Building relationships and partnerships within the Sioux Falls community and the region is going to really help us get there. And then again, with that, I think there's just a lot of untapped potential and opportunities, with being in Sioux Falls that we want to capitalize on and be a little bit more aggressive with to help us get to where we want to be. And like I alluded to, we got to make some enhancements, to some of our facilities, our resources, our branding, some of our culture. And I think if we do all those things really well, we'll be in a really good place and consistently be one of the most respected and competitive Division II athletic departments in the country.
Love to hear that. So somebody submitted this question. What is the biggest difference you've noticed in your job from DWU to now USF?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of significant differences, coming in to this job. That was something that I was really at peace with, and knowing that there wasn't a ton of differences. There's a lot of similarities in small private colleges that are faith-based. So, I really felt comfortable with that transition. So there wasn't a lot of differences. There isn't a lot of differences that I've seen or came across so far. One of the biggest things that I knew going into was just going to be the adjustment from NAI to Division II, right? I think that with that, there comes a lot of learning curves, more related to compliance, And I have a lot of help there with Eric Brothers, who was the interim AD, who did a phenomenal job, in the fall when Pam left. But he has really helped me in that realm of learning some of those differences, from an NAI rule book and compliance perspective. But ultimately, I really feel like there's a lot of transferable skills, with being an athletic director, and I think most of it revolves around, surrounding yourself with a good team, so making the right choices when it comes to hiring coaches and hiring staff, and then just building relationships, with community members and partners and boosters, and then obviously advocating for, your student athletes. That's the overarching pieces, I think, that come with being an AD. And I think it's super transferable no matter, what division you're at or what school you're at.
Yeah, and you are not quite at your 2-month mark here at USF, but
Right.
in this short time, has anything surprised you?
Not really. I think that again, we have some great staff. We have some great personnel here. We've got great student athletes, and we got great supporters. So there hasn't been, too significant of a difference. I feel like, or surprises. There's things that I feel like we're doing really well that I didn't really necessarily realize in the interview processes, and there's some things that we need to work on that I didn't really realize in the interview processes. But I do feel like everybody's got their challenges, everybody's got their strengths. So there hasn't been too many surprises yet, Brittany. Again, I'm only about a month and a half, 2 months in. So there could be some things where my answer to that could change in the coming months.
You could still be surprised. There's time.
Right. Right.
Sure. So you mentioned this in your first question about your vision, but what projects do you foresee within USF Athletics, and what facility upgrades or changes would be on your wish list?
Yeah, I think that one, we really got to focus on the facilities that we currently do have, right? And how can we make them better? That maybe cosmetically they're really easy to update or make look better, or, from an appearance perspective. I think there's some things that we can currently do with our current facilities that just need some love and attention. So yeah, I think that's kind of the overall focus right away here. And then, bigger picture wise, I think, we're really diving in and exploring, how we can capitalize on some bigger projects, whether that be, expansions to the Stewart Center here, or, work out at the South Complex, where our football stadium's located. I think the biggest thing that comes with both of those projects is just that there's a lot of opportunity there, right? And I think that we're on the right track of really exploring what those opportunities are, and really, hitting the ground running and being aggressive on that fundraising trail to make some of those things happen. And ultimately, you don't want to just have that benefit, one or two sports. You want it to benefit all 18 that we offer. So you have to be pretty strategic on how you put that stuff together and get a lot of opinion and input from a programming perspective to make those facilities long lasting and very efficient for use by all 18 of our sports and 450 of our student athletes. So I think that's a huge focus. And then you talk a little bit about the perception of Sioux Falls and where we want to be from a tradition perspective and an iconic perspective. I think there's some cool things we can do from a branding perspective and image, so exploring like, hey, is maybe time to refresh our logo or look at some options there that are more modernized that we can use very religiously, across all of our sports that look really, really nice. I think there's some challenges with our current logo that when we're doing print pieces, whether it's t-shirts or whatever it may be, they don't turn out the greatest. And I think that I really want to explore what we can do from a branding perspective. And I think that there's some revenue opportunities with that, and then also just some appearance things that put us in a really good situation going forward. And then another piece too is just really growing our booster club and growing our corporate sponsorships. I think there's a lot of opportunity with both of those avenues that ultimately really put us in a really good position overall.
Love it. And actually, that's a perfect segue into a question that just came through on the chat, which is, how do you tap into relationships, partnerships with your student athletes that are not from Sioux Falls? and basically use their networks? How can those parents and those student athletes be more involved in supporting USF athletics?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. That's one thing I haven't dove into quite yet, from a recruitment standpoint of, where our real pockets are or where our untapped potential is, outside of the greater Sioux Falls community. We've had great relationships obviously in Minnesota, but where can we really look at, tapping into some other places for recruitment? And I think that really revolves around kind of our coaches, and where they're comfortable and where their backgrounds are at. But ultimately, we want to have a really wide range, across the nation and also internationally in some of our sports specifically too. But again, it comes back to relationships and it comes back to experiences a little bit, and the fact that let's say we get an individual here from Arizona and we didn't have a lot of recruiting networks or connections in Arizona. But if you get somebody here from Arizona, whether it's in Phoenix, wherever it may be, you get them here and they have a great experience. That only creates a domino effect, I think, for having more individuals come from that same high school or that area or that region. If they come here and they have an awesome experience, holistic experience, as being a student, being an athlete, I think that's just going to create some really, really good opportunities for us going forward. And word of mouth travels really, really fast. So if you're into certain high schools that we weren't into before and they have great experiences while they're here, I think that is just going to pay major dividends down the road. So I think that's something that we got to for sure capitalize on. Every student athlete that walks across or comes across our campus is they have a phenomenal experience while they're here, because obviously they have friends, their families have friends, and making those connections and making those referrals are going to be critical.
Yeah, and one other thing I might add, if I may, would be to your involvement is the best that we can do is getting you plugged in to our
Right.
communications and what's going on. So a great way to get involved would be to sign up for the emails we send out so that you can be aware of events like this. We send out when the athletic teams will be competing in your areas. That's something we like to do as an away games email so that you can support them when they're on your turf. So my colleague Chelsea will put that into the chat, a link of how to sign up to get our emails. And we'd love to connect with you that way and then get you more involved as time goes on.
Fantastic.
Okay, so you've mentioned that relationships are a big priority. Just now you did as well. Can you talk about what that looks like with our internal community as well as our external community?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't emphasize this enough of just how awesome our team has been. Again, I've only been here a short time, but and I knew this coming in that we just got a great team of support staff and coaches. So I can't say enough good things about how awesome they've been to work with and how hard that they work. And I'm talking around the clock. I mean, our coaching staff and our support staff put in a lot of hours, all for the benefit of the University of Sioux Falls. So we have a great team in place here, and that's obviously a huge part of what I do is making sure that we're surrounded with great people and a great personnel. And we have some openings that I know that we received a question about this, just as far as like our current one that will be open soon is like our swim coach, right? So I really want to make sure that we get the right person in place for that, and we're going to open that up here pretty soon. But again, when it comes down to surrounding yourself with good people, you want to make sure that you have, some thorough interview processes and really get to know that individual before they get here. Because they're going to be on the front lines of recruitment for the university and the front face for the university. So those hires are super important. So I'm really looking forward to that being my first hire is coming in and bringing in a swim coach in. I think we got a great internal candidate and Coach Moore. She's done a great job. And the timeline for that is to kind of maybe have that posted here pretty soon and have that pretty much off and running, and us be in a position where we're hosting candidates for that, shortly after nationals, and then having somebody in place, about a month after nationals. But can't say enough about our personnel here. And then externally, everybody's been super, super welcoming to me from a donor support standpoint, a corporate partner perspective, we got some great people that are involved, and then we got some great people that aren't involved that want to get involved that we want to capitalize on too. And then I just can't say enough also back to the internal piece on just how awesome our students and our student athletes have been, just getting to work with them on a daily basis, whether that's them coming in to see me without an agenda or with an agenda. I love to get to work with them on a daily basis. I just did a podcast with two of our soccer individuals this morning, which was awesome. So everybody's just been super welcoming and super kind to me. And it's been an awesome experience so far, internally and externally, working with people.
Love it. And we're flying through these questions, so continue to add them to the chat as you think of things. We're going to get to the one in the chat in a minute. We hadn't anticipated that one from a couple people. But next up, I'd love to know, what are the most significant challenges impacting collegiate athletics? And we got a lot of questions about this, so you can talk about nationally, locally, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, nationally, I think, most folks that follow college athletics right now, they know it's pretty crazy, right? You got a lot of crazy things going on with, your conference realignments, and how significant those can be on an institution. A lot of challenges in that realm, not only, from a Power Five perspective, but also, you get down into Division twos and even NAIs. You're seeing that locally here with like Dakota States and some of those schools that maybe don't have a home, after this following year. But I think that's a significant challenge. I think navigating NIL, name, image, likeness has been a big one too. I think that there's a lot of things that the NCAA literally let some horses out of the barn, and I don't know if they're going to be having much luck in getting them back in. And I know that that's priority number one for the new NCAA president, Charlie Baker, is just really getting some help on containing NIL and putting some parameters around it, because right now it's pretty much the Wild West. I think that there's a lot of schools that are capitalizing on NIL opportunities, but they don't necessarily know what the heck they're doing with it. And when you ask other institutions, or you ask people about like, hey, how are you handling NIL? Everybody's pretty reserved and protective on how they answer that question, because they're not sure if they're handling it the right way. Because like I said, it's the Wild West right now. And I'm not saying that the NIL situation's bad. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that, but I think there also needs to be some parameters around that a little bit that really put things on a fair or level playing field when it comes to that. And then transfer portal stuff, I think again, the transfer situation has gotten to be so glorified that it's so normalized now that that's almost a given that people are going to explore the transfer portal or talk about transferring, and that's something that we want to focus on here, of just how do we combat that, right? And I think that again, it goes back into having a great experience with your students right away on the tip from when they get to campus, because I think there's a lot of data in that a lot of people make up their mind if they're coming back to the next semester or the following year within like their first 6 weeks of being on campus. So those first couple months while students are on campus, they're very, very critical. And so, having a lot of thoughts around that from a faculty perspective, student life perspective, and athletic perspective is super, super important right now, because again, a lot of these students are coming in with the mindset that the grass is always greener on the other side, when realistically that isn't the case. I mean, there's a lot of data out there from people jumping into the transfer portal and then not having a home once they do, and nothing shaking out for them when they think that, hey, life's pretty tough here, so I'm going to see where else I can go. And that's not the point of this. That's not the point of being a college athlete. That's not the point of being in college. Like, our teams are here to challenge, our students, not only on the court, but off the court as well. Like you're coming to a university, you're coming to University of Sioux Falls to be challenged and grow as a person. Not everything's going to be easy, right? So there's going to be some roadblocks. There's going to be some challenges that you come across on a day-to-day basis. And it's how you answer those challenges is going to really put you in a position to succeed going forward, because we all know once you get out of college, things don't get any easier, and those challenges are going to continue to come. And so how they cope with those things while they're here is going to be super important, and how we help them through that is going to be super important. So transfer portals, and like I said, transfer portal is one that's crazy right now nationally. And then, mental health. I mean, that's another big piece too. And I think that we're doing a lot of good things on our end to really put us in a good position from a mental health perspective, where we have resources on campus and off. And I think it's just making sure that our student athletes, our coaches, faculty, our staff are well equipped with how to manage those situations. I think education is a big piece on the mental health front. So I think those are some of the national challenges that we're looking at that are affecting us in some way, shape, or form, Brittany.
Can I touch back on that conference realignment really quick?
Yeah.
So, how or does that affect or impact USF?
Yeah, I think that in some way, shapes, or forms, like, we're in a really, really good situation. One, we're in an awesome conference. The NSIC is a phenomenal league, so we have a lot of stability in that, and it's strength in numbers, and it's strength in your markets, and I really feel like we're in a great position there. I don't think it's necessarily affecting us too much right now. I know that, one question that maybe people have is, how Jamestown, how that's going to shake out, and how that works with our schedules and whatnot. And they'll be coming in soon. But that's a situation where you see how other conference alignments are affecting ours, right? They're coming from the GPAC, which is also a very, very stable conference, which was where I was coming from at Dakota Wesleyan. But you have, like, the North Star, for instance, that used to contain your Valley Cities, your Dickinson States, your Dakota States, your Bellevues. That was an 8-team league for a while, and then it went down to 6, and now it's down to a less than that, where they can't be a sanctioned NAI conference anymore. So how does that shake out overall, in the grand scheme of things? Like, I know that it's very, very well known that Dakota State probably maybe exploring, looking at Division II or Division III or whatever it may be, in order to fall into a conference, because the GPAC, for instance, which is maybe the most optically the right fit for them to join, like the GPAC has, some bylaws within their institutions that say, like, hey, you got to be a faith-based and a private college in order to be a GPAC school, and Dakota State's a state school. So it's kind of a trickle-down effect that isn't directly impacting us, but it's kind of indirectly, having some effects on kind of our daily lives and just our surroundings a little bit, that we always got to be aware of.
Sure. Yeah. And are there other local or NSIC challenges? But even, yeah, what is USF facing a little
Yeah.
bit more forefront?
Yeah, I think, everybody has their challenges, like I alluded to earlier. I think the biggest things that, most small private colleges are going through, similar to USF, is just the enrollment impacts. And we've been on a really good end of the spectrum, I think, from an enrollment, from the enrollment side of things. There's a lot of small private colleges that aren't doing very well right now in enrollment. And, we had record enrollment, I think, this fall, which is great. I mean, it wasn't a huge number. But I think that we need to really emphasize on continuing to grow that. And, our athletic teams, I think, are really helping shape enrollment for future at USF. And budgets are another piece that are really difficult right now for everybody, whether you're a Power 5 or you're a small private Division II. Budgets are tight. Budgets are tight. And staffing is another one. Staffing, whether it's support staff or coaches, there's some people that are getting out of college athletics right now. So it's hard, and it's very similar to kind of some of your trade skills. Whether that's construction, whether that's your kind of your one-off jobs. Like, it's hard to find some, like, sports information directors, for instance. It's hard to find some people that are really good at compliance. It's hard to find some people that are really good at managing websites and keeping that stuff up. And again, it's not a great or an easy time to be a coach either. There's a lot of things that are impacting and making coaching lives pretty stressful. So staffing is an issue too, and athletic training. There's a shortage of that worldwide, and so those are all things that we deal with on a daily basis that are challenges for us, but they aren't specific to us.
Yeah, we're not alone in these, which is a good place
Correct.
to be. I'm gonna hop to I had a similar question that just came in the chat, so I'll hop to that one next. So men's and women's wrestlings are running. Can you talk about what this growth has meant for USF athletics and if you have any further sports expansion on the horizon?
Yeah, I came in after the fact, after those were added, and they've been, I think, great additions to our culture here and our department overall. We've had some great successes right away. I mean, our women's team is sending forward to nationals here, which is fantastic, and then our men's team have really hung in there with some schools that have been operating for a long time in the wrestling world. So I got to give a lot of props to our coaches in that realm. They've done a fantastic job, and we just got some great student athletes in each of those. So for first year programs, I think that they've really exceeded expectations for us. And from an enrollment perspective and from an optics perspective, they've really done a lot of good things for this campus. I look at, again, women's wrestling, for instance. I mean, we hosted the University of Iowa here this year, and I think we had upwards of 1,000 people come in to support that. And I think they're coming back again the following year. And what a great event, to have and host on our campus. And the University of Iowa was great to work with, and talking to their head coach and their associate head coach. They were super, super thankful for that opportunity, because there's a lot of Iowa fans here, and there's a lot of people that are very, very interested in women's wrestling. And you literally got to see the best of the best. We went head to head with them, and that was a lot of fun. So just opportunities like that will continue to come, I think, have been awesome with these additions. And again, it's good for enrollment. I talked or alluded to a little bit about the fact that, right now we have probably 450 student athletes, and right now, as it sits, like, we're projecting to be probably around 550, 515, 520 for next year. And a big player in that boost is wrestling. Men's and women's wrestling, and then football is going to be taking on a few more kids, and then you kind of just go down the list of our 18 programs, and everybody's just taking on a few more student athletes, which is phenomenal from an enrollment perspective. And then you talk about future growth and expansion for more sports. I don't think we're necessarily there yet. I really want to capitalize on the sports that we currently do offer, and making sure that they're in a good place before we hit the ground running and exploring adding more. We need to focus on the current ones that we do have, and how can we make them better before we just diversify even more. But you're probably doing yourself an injustice a little bit if you don't always take a look and keep a pulse on where the growth is happening nationwide for sports. You're seeing a lot of traction, I think, in men's volleyball. You're seeing stuff in bowling. You're seeing stuff in shooting sports. So it's one of those things that every college in the country is doing what they can to explore and expand on enrollment. And I think there's a lot of enrollment growth happening through athletics.
Absolutely. So a question that just came through ties in with another one we already had come in. So I'm going to ask, it's going to have quite a few questions all at once for you. So do you foresee any major changes in USF athletics in the coming seasons? You've talked about the sports aspect, the actual teams, but are there any discussions on replacing turf at the football stadium? What other things are changing, or what other things are we already doing right?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that we're obviously doing right. I talked a little bit about, kind of our personnel. We have great people again. I think ultimately we prioritize the right things here. I think that's something that, oftentimes get overlooked when it comes to athletics is we really emphasize academics. That's priority number one. Service to the community, prepping our students for challenges and for life after college. Those are some great things that I think we really do well. Optimizing our resources, right? I think we run pretty lean here and pretty effective here. So we do a lot of good things in that realm too. And, we're data driven in our decisions. And I think we prep for the future really well. I think that those are all things and elements that we are currently doing really well. And then to answer the other aspect of that question, I would hope that, you see a lot of changes or feel a lot of changes. I think that's going to be the main thing, that really comes hopefully in my first year as AD, that you feel some differences, right? And then we gradually see it. I think I talk a lot about culture here, right? And just kind of growing like our relationships and the vibe of the University of Sioux Falls athletics. I think that's a big piece for me, is just the feeling that you get if you come to our events. So like, hey, there's some buzz here and there's some optimism here. I think that's a big thing that I hope people can say that they feel that and change. And then also, again, I want to make sure that you see it too. And that somebody brought up the turf, that there's some attention that needs to take place out there. We actually just had a turf company come yesterday and kind of take a look at that and put some numbers together for us. Hopefully we'll be getting that stuff soon. And I'm going to be one that's going to be aggressive in that. I want to really make sure that our student athletes and our coaches are well equipped to take things to the next level here, and that's all part of it. But yeah, there's some areas of attention if you want to get specific. That out of football, we need some new turf here soon, both at that spot and then hopefully some other locations out there. That South Complex, we can get some turf added as well. That would really benefit not only our athletic department but the greater Sioux Falls community and Sioux Falls Christian and some of those players. But yeah, I think that the changes hopefully that you see, you can feel them and then you can see them.
Love that. Well, that was quite an update too on that. To have an answer like that, we met with them yesterday. Can't do much
Yeah,
better than that
did.
as far as any updates on that. Okay, so you've talked a lot about the changes, but changes require help, right? And some people.
Right.
So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you how people can support USF athletics. What can they be doing in a financial, but also just tangible people contact ways?
Well, hey, I gotta plug Give to Coup, right, Brittany? I mean, that's coming up here. I think that's what, less than a month away, and that's a great time to kind of show your support. And we got a lot of generous donors, I think, on board for that already, to make some matching gifts and do some really cool things for unlocking some additional gifts and those kind of things. So I think that's going to be really, really fun. That those are always a good, like, what, 48 hours, I think, Brittany, it is, and that's coming up, I think, March 19th, through the 21st, somewhere around there, right?
Nailing it. Love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Give the Coup, I think that's a really good opportunity that's coming up, and you'll have the options to kind of give specifically to athletics or any other areas of emphasis that you want to support. One thing that I really want to make clear is that I really want to grow our booster club. I really want to grow our booster club, and that's going to be something that hopefully people can see and get through the mail or be engaged with on our online platforms. Is really growing that. I think there's a lot of opportunity in growing our booster club, and same goes for our community partnerships and our corporate sponsorships. Those are great ways to get involved. Ultimately, though, I would tell you, like get to stuff, like get involved, like get to our games. I think that there's a lot of things that can come with that, of just getting out and coming to support our programs and our teams. Like not getting involved doesn't necessarily mean getting involved financially. I want people at our stuff. I want eyeballs at our things. And so that's going to be one thing that if you're unable to support financially, hey, get over and come to our games and support our student athletes and support our coaches. But yeah, we have a lot of opportunities to get involved. And if you have questions with that, get in touch with us if you'd like to chat more about it. And I'd love to visit with you, set something up. And we got a great team here that always wants to be engaged with the community. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in that, and a lot of ways to get involved.
Love it. And my coworker, Chelsea, read my mind. She put the deets to Give to Coup right in there. There's going to be, and the Cougar Booster Club, she's on it. So there's some links if you really want to take that action, and you're really putting your money where your mouth is, I guess, to support USF, that those links are right there for you. We just had one come through, and you did mention branding, but can you talk about, I'm going to read it here, an emphasis on uniform consistencies, just having
Yeah.
multiple numbers but that also ties in with what you're talking about with branding as well. So would you mind addressing that?
Yeah, I think that there's the processes that we have here for branding, whether it's through uniforms or whether it's team travel gear or team issued stuff. I want to make sure that we're putting stuff out there that's consistent. So I've had Maddie Brink and we've worked on some things that I think puts us in that realm that whatever you see, like that's USF, right? It's very recognizable, and it's consistent, and we're staying within our same brand family. So working with Maddie on that and our marketing team, I think going forward is going to be a huge thing for me. Because again, I think what you put out there, it needs to be consistent. It needs to look the part. Needs to look professional. So those are all things that we want to make sure that we're doing. And again, I think that there's even another layer to that of like really exploring, maybe changing our logo, and checking those things out to see like, hey, it might be time to modernize our stuff. I get that our current USF one is very iconic and people are very familiar and maybe particular with it, but how can we maybe find something in the middle, that modernizes it, that really has an appeal to, our current students, and it makes it easier to use and put it on products. So I think there's a lot of cool opportunity with that, and something I'm super excited about.
Yeah, and with all of that comes, a lot of researching needs, and being in that preliminary stage that we are now,
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're looking at and doing. It's
right,
just that research part and seeing where those inconsistencies are and where then those opportunities are. So
right.
that was well said and a great question. We do have time for those of you that have other questions to put those in the chat. Um, did you have any other did we miss any of the questions that we talked about that came in early there, John? As we wait for others to throw their questions in the chat, we are a little ahead of schedule, so we've got time. Other burning questions out there?
No, I don't believe so. I think we hit most of them. I think, Brittany,
Yeah,
my notes.
great. All right, so I'll be great. Thank you, Clint, because I was going to say I don't want to cut anyone off. Now is your chance. Ask those burning questions. Is USF thinking of adding a male swim team? There, let's get specific here about those.
Yeah. Well, from my knowledge, and which is a whole 2 months full, we haven't explored that specifically. I don't think, Clint. But again, I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not, really taking a look at, what makes sense for us to add. And then you got a big portion of this, a big thing that you got to keep in the back of your mind is Title IX, right? And so I think right now we're in a climate where it's a little bit harder to add male sports if you have football already. So you really got to explore the balance there and see how those additions really impact Title IX. But again, everything's on the table, I think, and that very well could be one if we have some really good data and we have some things that align from a compliance perspective to pull that off. Midco is a great home for swim. Like that place is awesome. I don't have a lot of history or a lot of experience with swim. Dakota Wesleyan didn't have swim, but that's one thing that was really fun for me in my first couple of weeks is being able to dive in on the NSIC swim championships that we hosted. And it was awesome. It was awesome in an awesome environment. We got some great kids in that program. Coach Moore, like I said earlier, does a fantastic job. So again, that should be something that we keep on our radar for sure.
I love that you said dive in during your
Yeah.
first 2 weeks.
Yeah. No pun intended, right?
I love it. Um, so and with that, you've talked about facilities and that thing, and so we know where those partnerships are really crucial because you just brought it up. We don't have our own, swimming facility.
Yeah.
But I think everyone on this call, because they're here, probably know. But for those that might watch this recording later, can you unpack briefly what you meant by Title IX and what
Yeah.
that means for male and women athletics?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, basically, there needs to be a balance there. Title IX has changed so much over the course of the last couple of years that it's hard to keep up with some of that. But, you're crazy not to be including legal on some of those decisions, and you're crazy not to be, using your networks when making those decisions. So at the end of the day, you have to have a balance between your male and female programs. And so if you're making progress, in one sport, male specific, you need to be making progress on the other end, right? So I think that, those are all things that, we need eyeballs on constantly, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right things there. And there's a lot of checks and balances from a reporting perspective. If we were in trouble in some of those areas, we'd know about it. But yeah, that's one that's ever evolving.
Thank you. Yeah. That is a huge component though to every decision
Yes.
made in collegiate athletics is that.
Yes.
So one that just came through and this is super new is that Wild West, the NIL. Um, what is USF doing anything specific related to that for student athletes or have a vision of where USF will go with it specifically?
Yeah, that's one thing that we for sure are going to spend some time on this summer. Currently, if we have some student athletes that are getting some NIL deals, it's few and far between. There's not a lot of kids that are on it. And then there's some checks and balances from a reporting standpoint that you got to do on NIL. But right now, we haven't really gotten that to a level to where we feel comfortable about it. I don't know if there are a lot of people that can say that they're super comfortable with where they're at with it. I went to NCAA convention like a week after I got started here, and that was a huge topic at convention was NIL. And there was obviously the room of your Power Fives that are dealing with it, and then the one that I was honed in on was more kind of your Division II specific. And there's just not a lot of people that are really capitalizing on that. There's some really good resources that I think we need to explore that kind of facilitate those things from an NIL perspective. If there's one thing that I took from NCAA convention on NIL is that it's very, very student athlete driven, so it's not necessarily driven by coaches. It's not driven by admin. A lot of those opportunities are explored and capitalized on by the student athletes themselves. And from there, we really do a good job of kind of reporting it and all those things. But I think at the end of the day, it kind of goes back into mental health and stuff. We just need to make sure that we educate our students and our staff on it to where everybody feels good about, hey, what opportunities are out there? And then if we are doing it, are we doing it the right way?
Thank you. Yeah. Because NIL is extremely complicated.
Yep.
So it's
Very
yeah.
much so.
So it's a can of worms that you gotta kind of sift through and see if you want to go fishing with them a
Yep.
little bit.
Yep.
Okay, so all of you who are on this call, I think I can say this about Jon. He'd be happy to answer any of your burning questions at any time, not
Yeah.
just during this kind of event. So that door is open. But thank you for answering all of the burning questions that we had so far today, Jon. And thank you all of you who joined us in this conversation today. We'd love to stay connected with you. We'd love to get you involved. So be sure that you are signed up to get our emails, that we have your updated contact information. We got to plug that USF Cougars app. So if you haven't downloaded that athletic app, do that. It's a great way to stay plugged in as well. And then be sure to follow us on social media. We have 1,000,001 pages because every team has one. But get plugged in there and make sure you're following along. That's all I have. Thanks again, everyone. And oh yeah, Jon.
Yeah, yeah. I think Clint just typed one in here. It is
Oh,
a good
sorry.
question related specific to swim, which is fine.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, uh, that's a great question. Like I said earlier, we're gonna probably have that swim search launched here like within the next 10 days. So we're gonna have that job posted, start kind of collecting, those apps. And like I said, I want to have somebody probably in place, hired probably within a month after nationals. From a timing perspective, we weren't going to launch a search in the middle of a season, nationwide. It just didn't make much sense. And I feel like we're going to have our best opportunity for apps here following the season, or right butted up against the end of the season. So if you're talking to those student athletes directly, please relay that to them, that's a huge priority of ours right now. As we're heading into the closure of the season. And then my door's always open. My door's always open, and come see me, come see our staff. I do have some meetings set with some of our individual swimmers pretty soon. But for sure, I'm really looking forward to diving in on that search. Got some feelers and stuff out there already. So we're going to be all over it, Clint.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see that one come through. Well, thank you, all of you, for caring so much and asking these questions, because without you, we can't do it. We need all of it, all of you.
Yep.
So thanks again for being here. And as always, John, you know what to say.
Yep, Goku. And again, I want to thank everybody for being so awesome to me. You know, like I said, I got 2 months in, 2 months into the job. Everybody's been super welcoming to me and my family. You know, my wife works in Sioux Falls here, and we got 3 little ones at home. And it's just been an awesome adjustment. You know, new routines and stuff like that. But everybody's been awesome to us. You know, on campus and off. So can't thank you enough. And I look forward to everything ahead.
There it is. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.